My short address is going to evolve around one single question. The question is, does the world need this? I will reflect on my experience with the students in the past 3 days, and I will talk about the music that we just played for you. On stage, as our President Halleck mentioned, there are over 400 students who 3 days ago came from all over Washington and Oregon to join us in this festival called Music in May Festival. Students, many of them drove on their own, and they traveled really far distances, such as north of Seattle and south from Grants Pass. These students came to be with us in the past 3 days, not because they are going to earn some money or academic credits. They came out of love for making music together. And they came out of a keen interest in bettering themselves, and through bettering themselves, bettering the world around themselves. Two things that will stay in my memory about this particular group of students behind me, my wonderful orchestra students, is incredible work ethics that I witnessed in them in the past 3 days. For example, yesterday our rehearsals were 8 hours long, and we were giving them really insufficient amount of breaks in between. To compare and to help you understand how difficult that is on human body and mind, professional orchestras or professional choirs or professional bands are contracted to have rehearsals only 3 hours a day, because it is recognized that creating music in such structured environment is really difficult on body and mind. These students went for 8 hours without any complaints, and then at the end of the day, many of them came to me and asked me about suggestions for further improvement, and several of them stayed in our practicing room to keep practicing. Another thing that will stay with me in mind about these students is how courageous they are in facing challenging assignments. The music that they are playing for you is actually music that professional orchestras are playing, and even for many professional orchestras, this would be a challenging music. Most of these students are not even taking private lessons, yet somehow in these 3 days they were able to put this together, not only to play it, but really to play it well. So going back to my original question, does the world need this? I would say yes, probably more than ever. The world needs students that are recognizing the value of hard work, that understand that life is not about taking shortcuts, but working hard, and students who are courageous in the face of difficult assignments. Please give them another round of applause. Music that we played for you, the very first piece we played is composed by Russian composer Modest Petrovich Mussorgsky. Mussorgsky made his place in music history as being one of the few Russian composers who, at the time when Russia was dominated by continental Europe, said we are going to have our own national voice, and he based his music on Russian folk music. Modest led a quite difficult life. He was born in a modest family and couldn't actually afford education. Throughout his life he worked as a night guard. Yet somehow he managed to teach himself how to compose and live to the world one of the most beautiful pieces of music, including the pictures in the exhibition. The piece of music that we heard is called Gopak, and it's a number in his comic opera that depicts fun of a peasant wedding in Russia. And this particular piece that you heard is a dance that is usually performed by a man, and they are holding their hands like this, and they are squatting down, and then every time they lift up off the ground, they say hop. So that's why, if you notice at the end of that piece, our students said hop. So that was a really uplifting and happy piece that we then complemented with a quite different piece, slow and lyrical somber piece, composed by English composer Edward Elgar, who was troubled in somewhat different ways, but still troubled man. He was a Roman Catholic in predominant Protestant England. He composed the music that is very traditional at the time, and most composers in Europe were composing in such so-called atonal musical style. And he came from a very modest background, but he married into wealth, and for the rest of his life he was kind of haunted by that because he never really felt comfortable in that position. The piece of music you heard is a part of a larger piece called Enigma and Variations. That Enigma Variations has 14 short pieces, and each piece depicts one of his either friends or family members or even a dog. The piece that you heard is called Nimrod, and it's depicting the character of his publisher, who was his lifelong supporter. And Nimrod is taken, the title Nimrod is taken from the Old Testament. That was a hunter, and the last name of his publisher, Jäger, in German language means hunter. The piece that we are about to play for you is composed by a composer who is still alive. He's well and alive, he's in his early 60s, and we are now moving to the American continents. He's a Latin American composer, more specifically Mexican composer. His name is Arturo Marquez. Arturo Marquez came from a musical family, but unlike most Western musicians who came from musical families whose parents or played piano or taught Western music, he was actually born to a father who was a mariachi musician and to a grandfather who was a folk musician. So he spent his early years visiting Mexican saloons, and that made really great impact on him, as you will hear in this piece. It is filled with the beautiful Mexican melodies. Arturo eventually moved to the United States with his family to Southern California. That is where he got his early music education. He played trumpet and violin, and you will hear prominent parts in trumpet and violin. And eventually then he moved back to Mexico to finish his college degree. Eventually he moved back to the United States to get his master's degree, and now he's teaching at the National Conservatory of Music in Mexico. This piece has two key ingredients. It has beautiful lyrical melody that is going to appear 5 times, and you will be able to recognize that melody. First appears in clarinet, so you will not have problem to follow that up. But then there is an underlying rhythm that goes from the beginning to the end called habanera rhythm that is played by claves, and it's a syncopated rhythm, and our student is now going to demonstrate what is the claves. So here's claves. And the rhythm is also called claves, interestingly. And it's a syncopated rhythm that she's now going to demonstrate for you. So that rhythm is always going to be present somewhere. So I would like to invite you, while you're listening to this piece of music, to either follow the melody or listen for that rhythm. And most of all, I'm inviting you to join this piece of music with us. Thank you.
you.